These two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In today's Shakedown, we dust off the printer so we can ponder about some prototypes. The Le Mans 24-hour endurance race has been held more or less every year since 1923. The famous Circuit de la Sarthe hosting all manner of machinery and many drivers determined to go the distance and enter the history books. While there are games that focus on the event in detail, sometimes, perhaps for reasons beyond our control, we just can't play them. Gran Turismo 4 has a literal 24-hour endurance event, for example, that can be completed in 8 hours should your B-spec driver be up to the challenge, but I can tell you now that I'm not reliving my teenage years and grabbing footage of that for the sake of this throwaway point. No, instead I'll just bomb around in Le Mans 24 hours for 10 minutes. That'll be enough to satisfy any desires for recreating one of the world's most prestigious motorsport events, won't it? It's not exactly a go-to title, is it? But that doesn't mean it can't provide a good time if it's the only thing we've got to work with. It's no secret that Jean-Christophe Bouvier has plans for a Rallyman version of this illustrious race. Numerous photos of various prototypes have been online for years now, and we can even chart changes from one version to the next. In the early days, cars had blue dice and a 7th gear, but in more recent tests, gone are the dice completely, and instead players are managing multiple drivers over the course of 12 or 24 turns, juggling tyre wear and fuel and keeping an eye on the weather. There may be enough information to translate and reverse engineer whatever has been shared to give it a go ourselves, but I've a better idea. We're going to let JCB mull over his ideas in his own time, and are going to dive into the Rallyman community to see what ideas they've had for endurance races. Will we find a capable set of rules that evoke the spirit of racing for hour after hour, hoping our car doesn't fall apart before the finish line? We are, of course, going to race around the Circuit de la Sarthe today, but it's a pretty difficult track to get right with the Rallyman tiles that are available. So into the BGG files section we go, where JC Bouvier has uploaded some large Le Mans tiles for us to make use of. I wonder if this JC Bouvier is any relation to Jean-Christophe. Anyway, these tiles are designed to allow for more detailed and accurate corner profiles, and to fit alongside all of the other Rallyman tiles we may have available. The corner that caught my eye is found on tile 607A, representing the Porsche curves. Those corner spaces, free from any speed limits, may give us some new ways to navigate the track, with the potential for some tasty overtakes around the outside. But before we worry about overtaking, we need to concern ourselves with the rule set that we're playing to, and that will be the GT Endurance rules from Z-Clay. After agreeing that we'll race for 24 hours, we're going to keep track of the race time by totaling the gear markers of all the cars each round, dividing it by the number of cars, and advancing the clock a number of spaces accordingly. Long story short, the faster the cars move, the slower the race timer moves, which is neat. Over time, our fuel will run low, our tyres will wear out, and our drivers will get fatigued, the solution to all three being a pit stop. It's not the end of the world if we try to drag things out and avoid pitting for as long as possible, but with the likes of reduced hazard limits and the inability to earn or spend focus tokens, there will come a time when a pit stop is forced upon us, just as it is in real life. All of this is tracked with a whole bunch of tokens, but in the interest of keeping my printer happy, I'm going to cut up a bunch of greyboard offcuts into the white damage tokens for the damage bag, and track the yellow damage tokens with different coloured dice, seeing as those never go into the damage bag and serve as a timer of sorts that usher players into the pits. If any of our dice read 3 or more, we've got to get to the pits within the next in-game hour to address that issue, and probably other issues as well. Needless to say, there is a fair amount of tracking of wear, tear and time, especially for a solo player. The rules even joke about giving the timekeeping job to someone who likes maths, so we're in for a busy day today with just these basics, but if you're up to the task you'll find a lot more to sink your teeth into with the full rules. We won't be worrying about the weather, and we'll keep the dashboards to a minimum, so there's no tyre strategies to concern ourselves with either. Ultimately, the one thing we need to remember is that the winner will be the car that has completed the most laps and driven the furthest. If you know a little about Le Mans, you may well know that it's a multi-class event, meaning fast and slow cars occupy the track at the same time, and we can recreate that easily enough here in Rallyman 2. Also included in Z-Clay's rules are the GTE and Prototype car class. The GTEs are incredibly easy to get to the table. Take a GT6 and give it an extra coast die. And the prototypes function identically to the unlimited dashboards, more or less, but instead of them, we'll be bringing O'Daly's hypercars back for a proper run, because while we've seen what they can achieve in theory, we've not seen if they can actually roll all those dice without any trouble. As a reminder, their batteries allow us to spend energy to buy additional coast and boost dice, provided we've done lots of heavy braking to generate all that energy. They'll start with a full battery so that those chicanes on the Mulsanne Straight can be put to use for energy recovery. So we'll have hypercars in the top class and GTEs in the second class, but who's racing? Endurance events are very much team affairs, but I don't have enough thematic NPCs to really make that happen. So if you're a fan of endurance events and know who the best drivers are, there's a gap in the market, so to speak, for some NPC driver cards to showcase their skills. I can put Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen into a hypercar, Fernando having won this event previously and Max having taken part in the virtual version of it. We can do the same for a GTE car, having Sarah Bovey and Rahel Frey of the Iron Dames try to get their class win, both being long-time competitors in the World Endurance Championship. But what about the other cars? Well, I guess I'll drive one of each, giving me twice the chance of a win today, but to compensate, my teammate will be Mr. B-Spec himself, a difficulty 5 Dr. Worm NPC with no driver traits whatsoever. We'll have him start in the GTE while we start in the hypercar, and you can all place your bets as to how soon it'll be before I make some sort of mistake, because that's bound to happen when I get Rallyman to the table. And don't worry, you're not going mad, the track and cars have indeed been scaled down quite a bit. We have lucked into pole position for both car classes, so beginning with our hypercar, let's start Le Mans 24. So let's see how far through this set of corners we can get. We have 2 coast dice available by default. That'll get us through the first little chicane here. We would then have to, I think, spend our extra coast die to get through the next one. So that will be 3 of our 10 starting energy in order to use that coast die there. And then we could, I think, secure the inside in 4th. You don't necessarily have to finish first immediately. Just 2 hazards. We have a hazard limit of 4, which means we finish all the way up here on the inside in 4th gear. Fernando Alonso next in his hypercar is going to finish alongside us in 5th gear. Next up is our GTE car, but it is of course being driven by Mr. B-Spec. And he has gotten just the 2 hazards, only 1 matters, and that's gear 3, and I think he's only going to be able to get into 3rd gear there on the inside, and that will be his turn. And finally we have Sarah Bovey in the orange GTE, and I believe she can do exactly the same, so she's going to finish alongside Mr. B-Spec in 3rd gear. At the end of the round, we are going to count up the gear markers. We've got 3, 6, 10, 15, which we divide by 4 cars, which gives us 3.75. We're going to round that up, and that is going to mean that we are moving the time forward 2 spaces, which means that 20 minutes of this 24-hour race has elapsed. Fernando Alonso to go first. He needs to break down to 3rd if he wants to obey his high downforce speed limit. I think instead he's going to go all the way down to 1st and get a run towards the next corner. That will generate him 3 energy, which he can use on future turns, and he will finish in 6th gear on the inside. I think we would like to do that if we can. Do we want to go flat out on that? I think we do. Just the 1 hazard on a brake die. Nothing to concern ourselves with as we come alongside Alonso in 6th gear. Mr. B-Spec has a few hazards to navigate, especially on his brake dice, so he is not going to brake. Does manage to get all the way up to 6th gear at the start of the straight. He will take the inside, just in case Sarah Bovey has better luck. Let's see what she can do. She's got a lot of hazards. Indeed, she's got hazards on gears 2, 3 and 4, so she is losing control already. She's going to break down to 1st gear. She is going to have 2 hazards by the time she exits this corner. She can then go 4, 5, 6, coast to get in front of us would be her 3rd hazard. She wouldn't be able to put that down. So she can't place any more dice, but she does lose control. And that is in 6th gear on an orange tile. That is 3 damage tokens to draw from the damage bag. Her first damage token is a fuel token. Her second is another fuel token. I suppose that's good for the damage, not good for duration in this race. The final token is a green flag. So her fuel has already started to deplete. She doesn't need to come into the pits until she gets a third fuel token, but that may come sooner rather than later. We are going to add up the gear markers. We have a total of 18. We're going to divide that by 4, which is 4.5. Rounds up to 5, and that means we are moving 1.5 spaces on the time track, which means we are currently 35 minutes into our 24-hour event. Fernando Alonso will need to dip into his energy reserves in order to get an extra coast die. He will take the inside for the next corner. We are going to roll one by one, and it's going to be a heavy brake down to first gear. That resets our energy up to full as we sit there in first gear. We have unfortunately got 2 hazards already. So gear 2 moves us through the chicane. Gear 3 is good to move us out of it. Gear 4 is good to move us into that long double space there. Gear 5 is good to bring us out on the track there. Gear 6 is a third hazard, which is there. We can secure a couple of dice then. We've got one coast there, and we can spend 3 of our energy to get a third coast next to Fernando. That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 focus for our turn, and our reserves come in handy. What can Mr. B-Spec do? Let's have him coast into the corner there. 5, 4, 3 and 2 will be 2 hazards. Ideally he would like to coast through the next one as well, so we'll have him start in 6th gear there, out in 3rd, and then up to 4th. Wouldn't be able to place down gear 5, that's the 3rd hazard for the turn. A 4th gear finish for Mr. B-Spec. All Sarah is going to do is check if she is unlucky, which she isn't, so she's going to rejoin the track in gear 0. What have we got on the gear markers? We have 16, which divided by 4 gives us 4, and so we are moving 2 spaces into the future. We are 55 minutes into our race, which means that at the end of the next turn we're going to cross over the wear and tear check, and so we're all going to draw some tokens and add things to our wear and tear boards. Fernando Alonso finishes a couple of spaces before the next corner. He has 4 energy left in his tank. We are going to want to try and match that, but we are running low on focus, so 4th gear is our 2nd hazard, 5th gear is good, 6th gear is good, so we're going to spend 3 of our battery in order to roll that coast die, and another 3 to roll that one, and that will mean that we go 3 coast, 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 4, 5, 6, a couple of spaces behind Alonso. Mr. B-Spec is next. He's going to have to finish in 3rd gear by the looks of it. As he gets caught up in the chicane, Sarah's going to be able to get all the way up to 6th gear. Is she unlucky at the end of her turn? She is. She's going to draw a damage token, -1 gear. So she is definitely wanting to come into the pits. The gear markers total 21, divided by 4 is 5.25, which rounds all the way up to 6, which means the race timer progresses a single space and crosses a wear and tear check. So each driver is going to draw a damage token, and then we're all going to get a fuel, tyre and driver fatigue token on top of that. Sarah Bovey draws yet another fuel token, so is definitely coming into the pits on the next turn to address that issue. Mr. B-Spec draws a yellow flag, which is ignored during these checks. I lose one of my 2 coast dice, and Fernando Alonso pulls gear damage. 3 teams are yet to draw enough of the wear and tear tokens to be affected by anything, so their race continues, starting with Fernando Alonso. So he's going to use a coast die, and then his high downforce, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd on the brakes. He is going to get 3 energy back, brings him up to 7. Coast out, into third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and he's going to take the inside space there. We've only got one coast, so we might have to use our E-coasts. Let's slam on the brakes to first gear. That's a lot of brakes to slam on though. That's 4 brake dice and first gear. We will be able to go through in second. We'll have to use another coast to get through the corner. Then we can go 3, 4, 5, 6 and potentially come alongside Alonso. Let's see how far we get, because that's not looking too promising in terms of going flat out. Not with all those brake dice. No hazards whatsoever. Thanks for that. We get hazard on gear 2. We are going to spend our batteries in order to roll our E-coast into third gear for our second hazard, fourth gear for a third hazard. Do we want to secure sixth gear desperately? I think we are not going to do that. It is a long race. We're only 1 hour into it. We're going to finish instead in fourth gear. What can Mr. B-Spec do? He finishes there in fifth gear. And finally, we have Sarah Bovey, who needs to come into the pits. So she is just going to descend down through the gears. As we tot up the time, we have 15 divided by 4, which is 3.75. Rounded up to 4, we have 2 spaces of movement. 1 hour and 25 on the timing board. Sarah Bovey's fuel tokens are back in the damage bag for us all to pick up on future turns. Fernando Alonso is going first. He needs to get down to third gear for the first corner. 5, 4, 3 is easy enough. Could even tackle it in fourth gear thanks to high downforce. But let's see what he does. He can go through the next corner with a coast die like that. If he drops to first gear, that will mean that he has generated 3 energy, bringing him up to maximum. He can go through there in second, thanks to the high downforce. He can spend 1 energy in order to get a boost die, and that boost die will get him up to fourth gear in, let's think, that space there. And that will allow him to get into fifth and then into sixth. But gear damage means that he actually finishes here in fifth gear. And I'm starting to think that he knows more about Le Mans than I do. Let's see then what Mr. B-Spec can do. Hopefully not get in my way. The best he can do is finish in second gear behind. We could finish there in fourth. That is the best thing that we can do. We're going to go flat out. A couple of E-coasts thrown into the mix as well. Let's see what we do. We get 2 hazards, not enough to lose control. Our reserves are empty and we finish here in fourth gear. Sarah Bovey then is going to get as far into the next corner as she can. She doesn't have to be in a high gear in order to overtake Mr. B-Spec, so she's going to finish there in third gear. We have 14 on the gear markers, so divided by 4 is 3.5. Rounded up to 4 means we have 2 spaces of movement on the clock, and that will take us to 1 hour and 45. Fernando then is going to finish in 6th gear before the final set of chicanes. Next up, we have to get through Arnage. We have no battery, so we want to do some heavy braking to get down to first gear. That will generate 2, which is not enough to get any extra coast dice. So we are stuck with 1 coast die. Probably need to come into the pits to fix that. We're going to go first, second, third, fourth. With our high downforce, we can get through that corner in 5th, and we can emerge on the other side in 6th gear there. Do I want to go flat out on those? Let's generate some focus. We have 4 hazards before loss of control. And we've generated lots of hazards. So we are currently crashing in, let's see, 3rd gear. We finish in gear 00. Let's see what Sarah Bovey can do. She's going to have to use her adaptable trait to try to re-roll away 1 hazard. So she re-rolls a coast hazard. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't manage it. That would be better odds for her, was what I was going to say. So she can only go up to there in 3rd gear. I suppose she could end instead in 4th to make it difficult for Mr. B-Spec. Mr. B-Spec is going to be able to overtake through the corner. With the gear markers totalling 14, we're advancing the race timer 2 spaces past another wear and tear check after 2 hours and 5 minutes. Sarah Bovey draws a green flag, Mr. B-Spec pulls gear damage, we draw brake damage, and Fernando Alonso draws a green flag as well. Everyone also draws a fuel, tyre and driver fatigue token, meaning most of our teams now have 2 tyre wear and therefore a reduced loss of control limit, and 2 driver fatigue, which means no earning or spending focus tokens. Not so bad for the NPCs of course, but quite the challenge for me and my lead foot. Nobody is forced to pit just yet, but with all that driver fatigue everyone does so anyway. Alonso chooses to not repair his gear damage and wipes his wear and tear board clean for Max Verstappen to make use of. Mr. B-Spec pits a space behind my hypercar, also chooses not to repair his gear damage, and then I jump into his GTE, which you can guarantee will confuse me going forward. Sarah Bovey pits to swap for Rahel Frey, and finally my hypercar rejoins the track after my crash in Gear 0, which I'm still driving, having not yet made it into the pits, and because I'm the only car out on track, despite what these photos are showing you, my Gear 0 marker is the only marker that counts for advancing the race timer. 0 divided by 4 is 0, so the clock passes another hour and we've another wear and tear check to perform already. I draw a tyre wear token, not that I'm concerned, as I'm limping into the pits next turn anyway. Rahel Frey draws a yellow flag, which is ignored. I also draw a coast eye damage because I'm also now driving the green GTE, remember, and Max Verstappen does a burnout and has started to wear his tyres before even leaving the pits. That will turn out to be an ominous sign of things to come for him.
Many hours later.
We are 22 hours and 40 minutes into this event, and I have finally reeled in Sarah Bovey in her GTE. There is not long left to get this overtake done. Max Verstappen has crashed 3 times during this race, so Fernando Alonso is in the car to bring it home in as few pieces as possible. Mr. B-Spec in the GTE is similarly in the pits to repair an awful lot of brake damage, and we are going first in this round, as I say, to try to rein in Sarah Bovey. We have lost 2 of our brake dice and 1 of our gear dice. We're in 6th gear. We really need to use our high downforce as much as we can, but I also want to end in a high gear. How do I do that? I need to be somewhere over here in 2nd to come out in 3rd. That would be nice. 4th breaks down to 1st gear, and then a coast will put me there. 3rd isn't brilliant in terms of trying to rein Sarah back in, but I don't have enough juice in the battery, nor do I have enough brakes to generate juice in the battery in order to spend 3 on an E-coast in order to block her. So the best we can do at the minute is come alongside in 3rd gear. I have an awful lot of focus. I'm not going to go flat out with these. I have a hazard limit of 3 thanks to my aging tyres. We've got 1 on gear 5 so far. Coast is good. Gear 2 is our 2nd hazard. I am absolutely going to pay for gear 3, and that will be our turn as we come alongside the leaders for the first time in like 10 hours. We're going to hope to cement this overtake over the next few turns, if we have that many turns before the clock runs out. Let's see what Sarah does. She wants to be in at least gear 3. She finishes there in 5th gear. Alonso and Mr. B-Spec rejoin the track from their pit stop for repairs, and the gear markers total 8, which results in 4 spaces of movement on the race timer, and it's time for our 23rd wear and tear check. Mr. B-Spec draws a green flag, and I am now driving the green GTE to the finish line. Fernando Alonso draws tyre wear, presumably because the only sets of tyres his car has are those scrubbed by Max Verstappen over the past 20 hours. I draw a driver fatigue token for the hypercar, so we'll have to pit next turn, as will Sarah Bovey, who needs to come in for fuel. With the two lead cars coming into the pits, we're hoping that the back markers finish in high gears so that the race timer progresses slowly, and as Bovey and I enter the pits without issue, Alonso and my other self in the GTE can indeed finish in gear 6. The race timer advances 3 spaces. The clock reads 23 hours and 50 minutes. There are just 10 minutes left for me to secure the overtake on the GTE for the win, but as we've swapped drivers, it'll all be down to Mr. B-Spec. As the back markers hurtle down the Mulsanne straight, the crowds at the start-finish line are on their feet. Rahel Frey crosses the finish line in 6th, which is quite the achievement considering she had gear die damage and started in gear 0, but I'm sorry to say that no matter what Mr. B-Spec rolls, the final chicane is just too far away and his battery just too flat to get the jump on the car ahead. We've got to settle for 2nd place overall and a class win as consolation in our first attempt at the 24 hours of Rallyman Le Mans. Way back when, the Iron Dames had quite the unlucky start, losing control on the 2nd turn, but it was pretty much their only issue all day. That it was a fuel leak and nothing bigger meant that for much of the race the only thing they had to worry about was the loss of a single die here and there. Contrast that with Max Verstappen, who, as I say, lost control on 3 occasions. It doesn't matter that he's the most difficult NPC at the table. If the dice roll hazards in all the right places, then he's going to crash in all the wrong places. And with the sheer number of rolls that took place today, he lucked into being the unlucky one. Because you can obviously only repair damage in the pits, a gear 00 crash meant waiting a turn to crawl back onto the track and another turn to limp into the pits, and then another turn in the pits to repair damage before finally returning to the track. Each and every one of those turns ends with you progressing the overall race time, and because you're not contributing a high gear to that count, the race clock speeds up, the wear and tear check comes sooner, and all of a sudden you're coming out of the pits having repaired damage and replaced drivers, only to be a turn away from another wear and tear check where a bad damage pull might make you think about coming right back into the pits again. That said, I like the idea of that race timer, but if there is one thing that you need to know, it's that the faster the cars move, the longer the event will take to complete. It makes sense when you think about it in terms of Rallyman logic, with higher ending gears representing a car covering the distance in a quicker time, but racing an endurance event like you would any other race is probably not the right thing to do. If everyone ends their turn in 6th gear, the race timer will only progress by 10 minutes, and there are an awful lot of 10-minute chunks in a 24-hour race. I think this is a long way of saying that I got the strategy wrong, if I ever went into the race with one in the first place. There were times when teams were clearly offset from the rest of the competition, pitting at different times according to their different needs, but I can't really say that was because of strategy, more luck in terms of not drawing wear and tear damage. It wasn't until the race was 13 hours old that anyone had enough focus tokens to spend so as to not have to draw extra wear and tear damage, and the obvious choice was to not draw tyre wear or driver fatigue. If those ever start to collect, your turns are hampered with extra hazards or no use of focus tokens, which will really upset your flow until you pit to address them. But again, I like the wear and tear idea. You're forced into the pits for all kinds of reasons in an endurance event, some of which won't be your fault, and you'll have to deal with them accordingly. I just wish that the racing today was a little more strategic and a little less reactive, but that may be as a result of me driving 2 cars and determining the actions of 4 NPCs, so I won't knock the rules too much there. I think if I were to endure an endurance event again, I'd go in with the mindset of driving for distance, not speed, in the first half of the race, before transitioning into speed for the second half, hoping that the race timer stretches out just long enough for me to race to a win. The problem, of course, is that such a strategy feels a little like the prisoner's dilemma, and that if no one else is thinking like that, then the race timer will be a tad unpredictable and there may be a runaway leader that I'll have no hope of catching up to, but I just don't know without trying to find out firsthand. The hypercars had a bit of a poor showing today, but I blame the drivers. Max crashed a lot and I was content to drive with lots of damage on account of how capable they are, but while doing so it meant I completely lost track of going for the overall win. The hypercars should be smoking the GTEs, they're plenty capable, but it wasn't to be today. Still, I enjoy their high downforce ability, that alone is reason to get them to the table. Just be sure to field more than 2 cars in whatever event you do with them. And finally, how does the circuit hold up? I didn't really get to experience the new corners in all of their glory, but the track layout did evoke the Circuit de la Sarthe nicely. Even condensed like this, it felt like a long track, and we got through 5 laps of it by the time the 24 hours were up. I'm not sure how often circuit designers will make use of larger tiles in their own courses, despite them being fully compatible with the GT tiles, but if I only ever use them for Le Mans 24-hour endurance events, then I have no complaints. We just have to hope that there actually is a Rallyman 24 hours on the horizon. Until then, the community has you covered. Grab some opponents, stick the real life event on in the background, and start to think about going fast slowly.